Oh, hey there, boils and ghouls. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, here in fabulous Las Vegas, the city of sin, and here to give you a sinfully spooktacular spring break. And this year's Spring Break Spooktacular will be held right here from the lovely Las Vegas. And with me, I have all kinds of creepy crawly celebrity guests, all narrators that you've probably heard before, like this. Well, I guess that would make her a dead act, huh? But you know what isn't a dead act? Tonight's story. For the very first story of the Spring Break Spooktacular, I bring you a tale of great spine-tingling terror, very close to my heart. The Mask Museum. I used to live in a pretty boring town. The kind of town that had nothing but little laundrettes and the old bakery or something down every street. The local school was big enough to fit the whole town into, although the place was pretty boring. I was born and raised there, so I grew to love it. I made a fairly good circle of friends, and we knew where all the interesting places were, like the woods and the play parks. We'd never really had anything interesting open in our town. Sometimes the odd thing would pop up, like an arcade or an ice rink. But because the place was so rural, it barely got business, so it shut down in a heartbeat. And it wasn't until I was around 16 years old that one particular place opened. The Mask Museum. It was pretty far out from the main building and places that me and my friends were used to, but we saw the posters for the place scattered everywhere. They all read, "Come to the Marvelous Mask Museum. You'll be hanging around for hours. Come and see all the funny masks of the past and present." Now, me and my friends thought that we were all a little too old for cheap little gimmicks like this, but it was something to do. After all, we didn't exactly have anywhere else to go. So we decided it'd be a laugh, and soon enough, we made our way there. When we arrived at the place, we were pleasantly surprised to see the building was all painted to look like a circus. Red and white stripes covered the building, and the windows were lined with twisting gold. It looked kinda cool. Our hopes had now raised a little as we stepped inside. The inside of the museum had bright red walls, with paintings of masks and other strange things on them. The room had little seats dotted about, and there was a wooden desk perched at the front. There we got our first look at the guy running the place. He had bright orange hair, and a rather mellow skin. He was wearing a fancy purple suit of some kind, with lines of gold along the collar. He greeted us with a bright smile, all of his pearly white teeth on show. He seemed friendly enough to me. But apparently my friends didn't quite like the looks of him. I stepped up to the desk and asked the man about admission fees, and when the place was open. With a big grin still on his face, he said, "There's no price for fun, my dear one. Come now and see all the wondrous masks, all completely free." Taken aback slightly by his loud tone and joyous voice, I simply laughed off his statement and agreed. My friends seemed a bit off by the whole thing, but I told them that we would only be here for an hour or so. After all, I couldn't have known how weird this place really was. And after they all agreed, the man clapped and made little hopping motions as he spoke. "Good, good! Just go through that door and feast your eyes on the magical mask wonders." Again, we laughed him off and went through the small curtain door next to his desk. We heard him draw the small curtains closed. But nothing could have prepared us for what our eyes met. Masks. Row after row of masks. Masks of men, women, children, animals, all the masks you could imagine, stretched down this long hallway that never seemed to end. that wasn't the weirdest bit. All the masks were facing us. Now, it wasn't us imagining it. The masks were literally turned to face us as we walked in, each and every one of the strange masks now looking directly into our eyes. The room was completely free of sound, except for the occasional creak. Freaked out, we were quite excited for the whole thing. I mean, we didn't expect it to scare us, so we began to walk down the long hallway, looking at each mask as it passed. A few moments went by, and I could hear my friends mumbling and looking rather anxious. I turned around and saw them staring back at a few of the masks. I asked what on earth the problem was as they spoke. The masks are watching us, dude. Confused, I stared up at the masks and were startled so badly I jumped back a bit. All the masks along the wall were still staring at us. The eyes had followed us all down the hallway. We could even see the masks way back by the first door were turned to face us. Rather creeped out at this point. Me and my friends thought that it would be best for us to leave. I mean, the place was pretty scary now that we thought about it. The plain black walls, the lack of music or sound, and those eerie, staring masks. It wasn't exactly entertaining or fun, just plain creepy. We made our way back up to the hallway, expecting to be right at the door with the curtains, and when we arrived back at the door, we were shocked to find that the door was no longer there. In fact, the curtain was now replaced with a mere painting of the curtain. I could feel my paranoia building up inside of me as I could hear my friends shouting and almost stuttering. Where the fuck is the door? Is this some kind of sick joke? I could hear one of my friends say. I didn't know what to make of it either. The only thing I could think of is perhaps we just walked the wrong way. Maybe the masks threw us off and we just walked the wrong direction. My friends agreed, and we walked rather quietly down the hallway again, just trying to keep our eyes off the masks. The more we looked at them, the more they scared us. Reaching the end of the hallway now, we reached the door with the curtains. Relieved. I had drawn back the curtain and stepped back out. Only to be met by a sight I didn't expect to see. Now, we were in a plain, gray stone wall room with no seats and no desk, no funny paintings, no sign of a strange man. Freaking out more than ever, my friends stormed into the stone room, shouting loudly and swearing. They just wanted to leave, and so did I. I noticed in this gray room there was another curtain-drawn door just next to the one that we'd come through. And desperate now to leave, I left no chance and told my friends to follow me into this room too. Perhaps this was simply an unfinished part of the museum. I didn't know, so I pulled back the curtain and walked in. I couldn't believe the sight my eyes met. I could hear the sound of my friends letting out bellowed screams. I could hear them crying, and now simply whispering for help. I was too much in shock to react to the sight, but I'd be forever burned into my brain for the rest of my life. Bodies of people hung along the walls, dangling by ropes tied around their necks, and their feet just barely touching small stools that laid to rest under their toes. Their bodies were simply dangling. The creaking sound of the strained rope filled the air, and there were holes in the walls, where their heads poked through. It was only then that I realized that these holes were in the exact same places that the masks were.